All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Sam Ratto. My name is Corey Maddox with First Bank. My company, First Bank, is honored to be presenting sponsor for the Coffee with Leaders series. We believe it's a great opportunity to hear and learn from the firsthand experiences of the top business leaders in our community. First, a little bit about my bank. We have been around since 1935. That's 85 years in existence, and we have over 100 branches located in North Carolina, from the coast to the mountains, and also in South Carolina. Headquartered out of Southern Pines, we are fairly new to the Raleigh market. We've been here since 2017, and we're actually currently moving into our new regional office off of Six Forks Road. That will officially be open on March 29th. I do encourage anyone to stop by and check out the new building if you can. It's absolutely amazing. At the end of 2020, we were a $7.1 billion asset bank, being the largest community bank in North Carolina. We focus on C&I operation businesses, commercial and investment real estate, and private banking. These are the three sectors that we work with our community. Please let us know if we can help you with your business or your personal banking needs. But today I have the pleasure of introducing our guest speaker, Sam Ratto. Sam first began his career in the food industry as a dishwasher, later taking on roles as a server and prep cook. In 2009, he moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, where he started work in a local Videri Chocolate Factory. His experiences taught him the science of chocolate making, but also awakened his vision for passion for creating organic, fair trade chocolate. Ratto left the factory to start the company of his own, Videri Chocolate Factory, which was built inside a warehouse. Videri reflects Ratto's attention to detail and appreciation for the craft and artistry of chocolate making. So without any further ado, let's welcome Sam. Good morning, Sam.
Thanks for joining me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you all, and to be invited here to be joining you for Coffee with Leaders. I'll jump right into it. Videri Chocolate Factory has been around since 2011. We've always been a bean to bar chocolate factory located at 327 West Davie Street in the warehouse district of Raleigh, North Carolina. We've always prided ourselves on getting the best beans from the best farmers and co-ops and fermenteries in Central and South America. Most of our beans come from the Dominican Republic, Ecuador, and Guatemala. We hand sort every bag of beans. In fact, I'm sitting in the bean room right now because it's the quietest place in the factory that I can not have my mask on. You can see our vibratory hopper here that leads onto a belt. And we literally hand sort every one of our beans. And I'll go a little bit more into that process in a little bit, but Des has asked me a few questions and I'm gonna sort of go over some of them. The first one that she asked me was, why Raleigh? What has Raleigh given to me and what impact has Raleigh had on me as a person and a business owner? I moved to Raleigh in 2009 to go to NC State to actually try and get into the PGA PGM program to be a superintendent of golf courses or some sort of land management or farming. The reason for that is that I was raised by farmers on both sides of my family. And when I got out of a long career in 2008, I said, what do I want to do now that I've been given this opportunity to do anything, essentially? And with the little money that I had in the bank, my then girlfriend and I moved to North Carolina and moved to Raleigh. And I started going to Wake Tech. I got straight A's in a couple of the classes that I went back to at the age of 28. And I got a job at another chocolate shop. And the first time I put beans in my hands and my job was to sort and roast and winnow them, my brain just turned on. I said, I'll do this forever. I'll do this for whatever it takes and for how long it takes. And then I started diving into the how and why of bean to bar chocolate making, why beans smell a certain way when you open them up out of a bag, how they change their flavor and aroma as you're roasting them, as you're winnowing and grinding and doing all that stuff. But the impact that Raleigh has had on me as a person has been life-changing. In 2008, I got laid off from a job in the action sports skateboarding industry. And like I said I had a new start in life. And so I moved to Raleigh and I got a job at a chocolate shop and it has completely changed my life. I have traveled the world, seeing cocoa growing countries, farms, fermenteries. I lived on a farm in Trinidad for a while, learning the trade from a farmer who'd been working in the cocoa industry for about 60 plus years. I've traveled the world seeing other chocolate factories in different places like Southern England, Austria, Japan, Australia. It's been life-changing, to say the least. Um, and so the impact that Raleigh has had is the most fascinating part of this is that when you go to other places, you say, "Where are you from?" And I say, "Oh, I'm from California, but I live in Raleigh, North Carolina now." And somebody goes, "Oh, I've heard of Raleigh. They have this there, or this happens there." Or they may even say they saw or met somebody from like GRCVB at a trade show, and they got a bar of chocolate from us. Or another good example is like when somebody that uses our chocolate as a chef or a baker or something like that goes and cooks a dinner or an event somewhere, and they take our chocolate there, and then a couple months later, the way the world works, I'll be coming through or something, and they'll say, "Oh, I had your chocolate when this person cooked with it or made this cake with it or whatever." And so that part has been pretty astounding to me. And as a full circle moment, I'm sitting in front of the Raleigh Chamber of Commerce and all you great folks here. And I remember when I was a new business owner in 2011, and I went to my first, I forget what they called them back then, but when people used to get together in rooms and share buffet food and drink coffee, I went to a morning meet and greet, and it was just this surreal moment of sitting in the Wells Fargo building, I think maybe even in the Capitol Club, and going, I'm about to be a business owner. And now, almost 10 years later, and been able to navigate on whatever level of pandemic. If it wasn't for Raleigh and the way that Raleigh shows up for each other, and how Raleigh motivates and creates change for other people, and how we welcome as many people as we possibly can into all of our circles, I don't know what kind of a person I would be or where I would be if I didn't move to Raleigh. And I'm so grateful that I live here. And I say it all the time, but I'm not going to leave unless they kick me out. And I'm doing everything I can to not get kicked out. So I'll go into the next question. The next question is, how did Videri start? And to talk about some of the challenges, the growth, and the progression. So like I said, Videri started when I first got my hands in a bag of beans. And the place that I worked, that job ended because I didn't want to work there anymore, is the best way to put it. I boldly wrote a business plan, pitched it to an investor, and got funding. That's how Videri started. It wasn't a long, drawn out process. I honestly didn't know cocoa grew on a tree before 2009. I had no idea the vast depth of flavors, textures, and even colors of chocolate in 2009. And so beginning that process and almost foolishly thinking that I could start a chocolate factory because I'd made chocolate for a year. Foolishly thinking that we could inhabit a 4,000 square foot old warehouse that used to be a nightclub and turn it into a community gathering place, and a place where we could raise money for charities and funds and all those sorts of different things was not even what I was thinking about. I was thinking about this thing that I love doing every day because I just learned how to make something that people want to eat and buy, and turning that into a company that has, had hundreds of employees. We've had, I think, 3 couples that have met on the job get married from working at Videri, and just different stories about impact and people. And then to sort of touch on the challenges of running a business, the best way to put it is pre-COVID, I believe that I had this sense that all problems are solvable with hard work or a consultant or a friend or a conversation, or just putting yourself in a good position and getting lucky with a new account or something like that. But what I realized is that the way that we face challenges these days or in the future is really about how you handle the moment that's sitting in front of you with a high quality product, and your goal of treating every customer as if you want to be treated without sacrificing your livelihood and the way in which you want to be treated. And I say that in the face of how the service industry and how people in the service industry are always told that the customer is king or the customer is always right. Well, in COVID times, we all found out that none of us were right, and that all of us just needed connection, and we wanted something to do and somebody to see, and what was safe and what was right. And learning how to run a business in COVID was essentially just getting back to the ground basics of, do we make a product that people want to buy? Do we want to make that product, and can we sell it for enough money that we can keep turning the lights on and paying people? Um, and all those questions are being answered. They don't have clear answers. They don't have guarantees to them. But today we're facing all of those challenges with just constantly kind of looking at cocoa beans, sorting them, roasting them, winnowing them, grinding them, and turning them into chocolate, and using that as our way of like, well, the worst that's going to happen is today we're going to eat this chocolate we made. And the best that's going to happen is that somebody else is going to come in and buy it, or we're going to be able to give it to a charity so they can raise money for whatever cause they're working on. And then we possibly get to enjoy it. So that's a roundabout way of saying that there's lots of challenges in opening a business. I would say the first one was learning how to run a business that is essentially a farm, and then finding a good CFO and controller that could help you financially run that. And we were lucky enough to get connected with Rankin McKenzie and Mike Rao over there, and they've changed our business. So challenges, talking points, all those different things. There's a Q&A at the end of this that Des is going to moderate, and you can ask me more questions about that, because I could talk about that for 2,000 hours, but we'll move on. So I'm going to talk about how Videri pivoted during COVID-19. I'm going to go back to a year ago, almost to the week of when everything shut down. There was a lot of uncertainty around if the governor was going to close everything, if we were going to be allowed to do anything, what was the reality of this pandemic, and how like terrifying it actually was. There was a lot of different stories going around. And so at my business, I got my management team together. We talked about what we were going to do. We closed for 1 week. And during that week, I had to make the tough decision to lay off, I think it was maybe 15 to 17 people. Most of them were in retail or they were part-time. And they were people that either live with significant others and they were doing this part-time job as a way of adding extra cash to their bank account, or they were students, or they were kids that still lived at home. And that isn't to say that it wasn't hard, but it was a really interesting way of kind of looking at this business. And those people said, you know what, this is a really tough decision for you. I'm sorry you had to make it. And I kind of sat back and listened to that sentence, and I was like, okay, this is terrible, but at least people are in some way, shape, or form understanding of what that is. So during that first week and then moving forward, we pivoted to mostly online sales until we could figure out a way to interact with our customers through our soft serve window, which we created. Our partner, Black and White Coffee, they created a patio window for takeout service. And we just tried to inch along on all the different things we were learning, all the new regulations we were learning, and then all the weird things that were happening with hearing about how people were contracting it, how people didn't believe in it, or just interacting with customers that would ask you, how are you doing? Why are you closed? Or different ways that people are either nice or just didn't care. And so our pivot really did start that first week in March. And then our big push towards a bigger pivot was when the city of Raleigh had a $10,000 grant. And then the Duke Energy storefront revitalization project took hold. We were able to access both of those grants, and it gave us the opportunity to open up a soft serve ice cream window, which I never thought I would be making or selling soft serve ice cream. But we got to make a really fun pivot there. We make all of our toppings in-house with the exception of sprinkles and gummy bears. And then Black and White Coffee opened up their patio takeout window. and they've been able to sustain business and still serve coffee and world-class beans to anybody that can come here. And that's the first part of the pivot. The bigger part of the pivot was a mental switch for me, um, where I really understood that working harder and longer hours for less or the same wasn't life fulfilling for me. Because I don't know if any of y'all remember, but that first, March, April, May, none of us knew how long this was going to be. None of us knew what it was going to feel like after 6 months or 7 months or 8 months of maybe not seeing anybody or not hugging somebody or not sharing a beer with your friend or going to a restaurant where we could all sit around a table and eat delicious food. I started to actually work less in the factory. I would get to work at 9 in the morning and I would leave at 4 in the afternoon. And in the previous 8+ years that I owned Videri Chocolate Factory, I would have never dreamed that I could get to work at 9 in the morning and leave at 4 in the afternoon and maybe go on a jog or a bike ride or go play golf or play baseball with my son at a park. It was the weirdest and strangest opportunity I've ever had to reset the way in which I frame my own expectations of how much I work. And that to me was the biggest pivot, because then I was able to empathize with myself about how much I was working and how much strain it was putting on myself and how much energy it took to show up to work in that space. So I was showing up to work well rested, still pretty stressed out, but able to make better decisions because I wasn't just grinding away at something that wasn't going to produce. We learned a couple different things about our business during this pivot. We learned that tourism, sports traffic, convention center, and business traffic are about 60% of our revenue. And if you were to just put that in a little box and say 60% of your revenue isn't going to come back, what are you going to do now? And it took, I would say, it took about 4 full months to really let that sink in, that 60% of my business wasn't going to come back, and that there was a very small chance that we could make that up with clever marketing campaigns, easier web shipping, easier web ordering, all the things that that you would think would be very simple and straightforward. And instead I said, let's just pretend it doesn't exist anymore. And let's go off of 40% revenue. And let's see if we can make that work. And we're still trying to do that until people start traveling back around and people coming into the factory and engaging with us and us giving them samples and smelling the chocolate and all those sorts of things. We're going to operate on the premise that we only are going to make 40% of year-over-year revenue. And that's kind of terrifying. I'll be very open and honest about that. But we've been able to secure both rounds of PPP. We're looking into some of those tax credits that have just come out in that new stimulus plan and things like that. And surprisingly, we're very poised for and ready for when people come back into the factory. So that's pretty amazing. The next question I got was, how do we stay safe and still interact with the community? Go outside. I used to have coffee with my buddy Jake from Capital Club 16. We would sit outside on the outside of the front door of Videri and sit 6 feet apart and have a cup of coffee. That was the only way that I knew how to connect with people, because a lot of people were either very COVID wary or they were a little bit brash and they didn't believe that COVID existed, or that masks or censorship or something of that nature. And so I just decided to sit outside with people and see as many people as I could. But I will say it gets a little bit annoying and frustrating when I just can't walk into somebody's business, give them a high five, hand them chocolate, and chat with them about what they're cooking, making, or what they're going to do that weekend. But the other way that we've been able to collaborate is actually from afar. We've collaborated with a lot of good charities and organizations and other businesses to coordinate on either food drives or fundraisers with the ACLU, or our most recent No Kid Hungry fundraising campaign, and trying to figure out ways to connect without actually being around people, myself as a 30 on the 30 scale of extrovert, it's really difficult for me not to want to talk to every single person that I see and high five somebody or even give somebody hugs. I miss hugging strangers that say like, I want to hug you. So maybe hopefully one day that'll come back. And that I think is the hardest part about what COVID has done is it is separated us more than we think. And I can't wait for the great reconnection. Um, the next question is the importance of leadership and community involvement. Um, I think if you're a business owner and you don't know you're a leader, um, you just have to look around at the people you work with. Those people think you're a leader. Um, they may not believe in you as a leader. I know the first 8+ years, maybe even up to this year, people I've worked with or people that used to work here didn't believe that I was a leader, didn't believe I had the skills to become a leader. But the only thing I kept doing was showing up and asking questions, and trying my hardest to be a better person every day. Um, Being a leader in this community, especially in COVID times, has gotten a little bit rougher because us as leaders in the food and restaurant and service and hospitality industries, we would see each other a lot. You would have like a Sunday night dinner at somebody's house, or you'd have a charity dinner or function or fundraiser or something like that. And you'd be with all your friends that you normally don't get to see because they're working at the same time you're working. Um, and it's been interesting to see and talk to people about their leadership and their community involvement when we don't get to do those normal things, that we've been doing for so long. That has been pretty difficult for most of us. I know as I talk to most of my friends in the restaurant world, not being able to see people that often is really difficult for most of us, even though we all want to. And we want to. You can see it every once in a while. You'll be walking up to somebody like I saw Paul and Chidi at Garland a couple weeks ago, and I went to go get some food, and I just instinctively was like, Paul, and he was like, not yet. And so that has been really interesting to kind of see how our community involvement has kind of gotten smaller, the best way to put it. But it's going to get so much bigger when we can all safely see each other and interact. I'm going to share some entrepreneurship advice, good or bad. You're the judge if it's good or bad. Entrepreneur advice. Read self-awareness books and then test that self-awareness with people that trust you and you trust them. The worst leaders are the ones who believe they're very self-aware, but they don't check it up with other people. The best leaders are people who understand that they're going to make mistakes and they communicate that to the people that they work with, their families and friends. We've all seen good versions of leadership and bad versions of leadership in the past 2 years specifically. We've all seen what happens when somebody makes a stumble and they apologize genuinely and they understand that they've made a mistake. We've seen situations where people make mistakes and they don't apologize. They don't believe they made a mistake, and the damage that it's done to other people. As a entrepreneur, you can have the greatest idea and you can have the greatest momentum. You can have the greatest product. You can have great sales. But if you're a terrible person, who cares? And for me, and that's my advice, is try and be a more self-aware, better person, and it'll make your community and the people around you better. That's all I have because it's 9:28 and I don't want to go over. So I welcome all your questions, and Des will be able to moderate. But thank you again for listening. Thank you again for being here, and I'm ready.
All righty. Thank you so much for sharing, Sam. Right now, we have two questions. The first one is, could you give us the story behind the name of your company, Videri? How did you come up with the name, and kind of what led you to select that name?
Yeah, so the name Videri Chocolate Factory comes from North Carolina's state motto, which is Esse Quam Videri, which means to be rather than to seem. We really liked the word Videri. It sounds appetizing. Videri, dark chocolate, Videri, milk chocolate. And then it ties us to the state of North Carolina. And when you walk around our factory, you can see everything that we're doing. If you ask us a question about where we got ingredients or how we got them or what our recipe is, we'll tell you about it. When we're back open at the factory, you can stand next to the roast pad and we will literally talk to you about how we roast beans, what the flavors are, what the temperatures are, what the times are. We just want to share. And so that name, Videri Chocolate Factory, really ties us to everything that we do.
Great. The next question is, can you talk about your dairy-free options, and also where do most of your customers come from? Retail, small business events, or where?
So a couple questions there. But the I'll answer the first or the last one about where does most of our business come from. Like I was saying earlier, pre-pandemic, about 60% of our business was from in-store foot traffic. And then we had a mix of about 30% wholesale and then 10% sort of web and special events, like if somebody rented out the patio or the inside for a wedding or something like that.
All righty. One more question. So what is your favorite type of chocolate? For those who are not familiar with Videri, what do you recommend as we peruse your online store right now at 9:30 in the morning? But who's judging us? We can have chocolate anytime.
Yeah.
What are your
Good.
favorite items? What would you recommend?
My favorite item, and we call it a little bit of a gateway chocolate, is our 70% with sea salt, and our 55% dark milk bar. You can actually buy 3 bars in our signature bundle on our website. That's a really good way to start tasting our chocolate. My personal favorite thing to eat is our 90% Ecuador that we make. For it being such a high percentage cocoa 2-ingredient bar, it's just a really interesting, deep, rich, chocolatey, little bit of nuttiness, a little bit of earthiness in the chocolate there. That one is amazing. And then on the confections bonbon side, chewy salted caramels. When we start making them in bigger packs and enrobing them in the next couple of months, we're all going to gain a few pounds and we're going to have a really good time doing it because it's delicious. Was there another question? I think there was.
Yes. Okay, so this question is, hold on, they're coming in so fast. Have you been able to access any HR support systems during this difficult employee time? If so, what systems did you use?
So we have a HR compliance, I guess it'd be consultant through CAI. And then we also run payroll through Paycor that has a pretty deep HR platform that you can access there. I don't think it's not as direct as our HR consultant from CAI, but it's been really interesting. I mean, there's different perspectives about HR during these times. The government, the federal government took their hands off the wheel and said, "You guys fix it," and we all kind of had to figure out whichever way to do it. For me, the best way that we sort of drove it was I kind of had to lean on my son's school and what their regulations were. I couldn't travel anymore. They wanted to know who was around everybody. So we had to kind of close the factory and we had to all wear masks and all the different things that we were doing. The difficult decisions that we had to make, because we are an in-person handmade thing, I couldn't go fully remote. And that was a little bit difficult. So there was a few people who opted to go fully remote, and we tried as long as we could to keep that going. But it was just, we don't sell tech, we don't sell insurance, and you have to be here to sort beans and do all this kind of stuff. So that was the hardest part. But we did lean on our HR consultant to work through some of those decisions and try and do what was best. We definitely didn't push people out of the boat and say, learn how to swim on your own. We tried to figure it out as much as we could. In the beginning of the pandemic, when a few people were trying to get on unemployment benefits. I think 3 people, we kept them on payroll for 2 more payroll cycles just because they couldn't access the site to actually get unemployment benefits. And so that's how we navigated it. Now, is that a good accounting decision? No, but it was good for the people that worked here and for their families. So kind of that's how you worked it.
That's good. Speaking of families, can you talk a little bit about how other restaurants, how do you all support each other? You know, when you think about all the different things that are going on, you have Jake's, you have Angela over at Centro, you have Maggie Kane, you have
Mhm.
so many good spots, great spots, Dave Meeker, Trophy, and all those great things. How do you all work together? Is there some sort of camaraderie between you all, and what has it been like, you know, in this together with other business owners throughout the Triangle, downtown in particular?
Yeah, it's harder because better together is a really good way to put like what it feels like to be a business owner, especially in the food service hospitality industry in Raleigh. Um, our partnerships, friendships, camaraderie, all of that was tested in May and June and July, with different people doing different things and some business owners putting our community at risk for the way in which they were treating employees. It was really difficult to see. And so the way that we're trying to figure out, it's almost a new way of supporting each other. When I kind of talked about how the pandemic has sort of insulated us or put us in our own little bubbles and we haven't been able to connect as much as we had in the past, um, it's taken a lot of energy and effort to connect with people and talk to them, and continue that supportive nature. It's hard to be everything to everyone, but it's really difficult when you can't just walk, like I said, you can't just walk over somewhere, you know, sit at the bar, get a glass of wine at pools, let's say, is a good example. um, and then connect with other people. The way that we always have connected with our customers and supported our community is somebody walks into Videri and we ask them where they ate that day. Where are they going to go? Are they going to go to the museums? Are they going to go out to NCMA? You know, are you going to go tomorrow morning and get a cup of coffee at Jubala Village and try their bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit? That that is the stuff that we miss. But connecting and doing it is, I mean, now it's phone calls, text messages. I'm trying to get on as many like fitness text message thread as I possibly can, asking people how they're moving, what are they working on. A friend of mine shared with me that she's really into jumping rope now, and I'm like, that's awesome. So that's how we're connecting, and I'm just so excited and optimistic about when we get back to seeing each other in person and just randomly running into people. That I'm really waiting for that. So that's how we're connecting.
I wholeheartedly agree. I am anxiously awaiting that as well. We have one final question. I think this is a great question, and it says, we all have a laundry list of negative things that have impacted us due to the pandemic. But what is one thing that has really surprised you in a positive way about your business through this transition? Through this transition.
Uh, it's very simple. People love eating chocolate, and people love telling you about how much they love eating chocolate. it's it was it was not like when you say surprising, like it wasn't surprising, but it was just so uplifting is a better way of putting it. Was that people were so excited to like when we opened the soft serve window, they're like, this is amazing, I get to eat Videri chocolate fudge now and have soft serve ice cream and buy bonbons. And so that has been very surprising. And then just human resiliency. um, the team here at Videri has been tested on a weekly basis. Again, new regulations, new guidelines, you know, different things of possible COVID out exposures and outbreaks and all these different things. They've just been resilient and been understanding, and we talk a lot. So that's been amazing, as we talk a lot.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Sam, for sharing. Can you drop like ways that we can support anything upcoming that you all have. We know it's getting warmer and, the regulations are changing, but the
Mhm.
ways that we can support you, your hours, we are definitely are going to, I know I am going to hop on and buy a few things, but just drop some few ways that we can support and kind of any upcoming events or soft openings, reopenings that you have going on.
Yeah, so the best way to support us right now is come to our soft serve window Tuesday through Saturday, 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. and Sunday from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. You can buy all of our chocolate, bonbons, everything. You can buy soft serve ice cream. This month, we're raising money for Saving Grace. It's a doggy pet adoption agency that helps a lot of dogs find new homes. That's the first way. And then you can go on to the website, viderichocolatefactory.com, and pick up all of our fun Easter offerings that we got some little eggs and bunnies and chocolate marshmallows and all the fun stuff. So that's a great way to support us, and go out and buy food from local restaurants. If those aren't around, it's going to be really weird. So support your favorite restaurant in town.
Thank you so much, Sam, for your leadership, your guidance, your overwhelming, amazing love for chocolate and all that you do to keep this community thriving. I'm just reading the comments. Everyone is super excited, and I'm sure we're going to get some soft serve this weekend and the weekends to come. Thank you so much. Corey, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback. Thank you, Sam, so much for sharing. With everybody else in the comments, I will definitely be coming to see you soon for chocolate, bonbons, the work. So again, just thank you so much for sharing your personal leadership journey. We very much appreciate your time, and please visit our website, the Raleigh Chamber. Join us for our upcoming events. Our next Coffee with Leaders is May 7th. Our speaker is Patrick Rodriguez. He is the Senior Area Manager for the Raleigh and Northeast U.S. Small Business Administration. Again, from all of us, thank you so much and have a wonderful Tuesday.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Thank
Sam.
you. Thanks, Sam.